now know that there's, as Greater Manchester Police put it, continued public interest and concern about the criminal investigations being led by Greater Manchester Police into a series of incidents at Manchester Airport last month. They point out in a statement just released in the last half an hour or so, 4 men remain on police bail. Our major incident team, led by an experienced senior investigating officer, is making good progress in investigating alleged criminal offences against both the public and police officers, and we are committed to reaching a conclusion to the investigation as soon as possible in the interests of justice. This is a complex case, Greater Manchester Police says, so we ask for public support and bearing with us while we make sure that inquiries are completed thoroughly. We also remain fully committed to supporting the Independent Office of Police Complaints-led investigation into our officers' action. There are now 2 officers being investigated by that grouping. They appeal for information. We've got lots of inquiries about the welfare of our officers and have passed these messages on to them. They're being well supported. Well, Aamer Anwar is the lawyer, the second lawyer for the family involved in the Manchester Airport video, and he is with me now. Aamer, thank you for speaking to me in this exclusive talk interview. You held a press conference on Tuesday. For people who perhaps missed that, could you just take me through what your client's version of events in Manchester Airport is? Because a lot of people will have seen those videos and will have said that they assaulted the police.
Well, I think that the first instance this whole issue blew up was from the graphic video that everybody saw of a police officer when a young man is lying incapacitated on the floor after receiving a taser, which I think is up to 50,000 volts. His mother is leaning over him on the ground, and the police officer is seen to run towards that individual's head, kick it, and then try to stamp on his head. That obviously caused a huge amount of concern because there was no attempt by the individual on the ground to move, no attempt to reach for a weapon. He was incapacitated. And obviously then following that, a few days later, there was CCTV leaked. And the CCTV leaked, of course, is from a highly secure unit within Manchester Airport. So the idea that it just sort of frog marched its way out without any purpose was quite honestly, I would see, was deliberate. There's an investigation into how that CCTV was leaked in what is a part of an airport that is highly secure for obvious reasons in relation to potential terrorist attacks. That video that was leaked, you see a large amount of it pixelated, and what was important was that the family wished to put the context on what happened, that there was an altercation previously which related to alleged racist abuse of their mother several hours on a flight. When she came off, she alleged a form of assault by an individual. There was an altercation that took place after she came out in tears. And following that, police officers attended at a ticket machine, and we see part of that video, which is heavily pixelated. And what the family was saying was that what happened was, it wasn't a case of the police officers attending. What they allege is that police officers attended, didn't say, could we have a quiet word with you, could you step aside? But no, hands were immediately placed on an individual. His head was pulled down, it was banged against the ticket machine. The other brother then alleges that he tried to say, take your hand off his throat. He alleges he is punched, and then pandemonium breaks out. I'm not going to go into the details of the pandemonium. That's a matter for an investigation.
Well, you've gone into the details of what you allege the police did, but is your contention, do you honestly expect us to believe that your clients did not attack the police with fisticuffs? Because I
think, Peter, that what I have said quite clearly in a press conference is, one, placing a context. Secondly, what I have said is that the family have stated they have members of their family who are police officers. And I quite robustly have said that the family have stated that if these 2 brothers were engaged in any alleged criminality, then they must face due process that is robust. I can't make it any clearer than that. However, there is no excuse for any police officer in this country, no matter what provocation, no matter what. We've seen any officers in the line of duty face intense provocation over the last few days, having bricks thrown at them, seen arson, etc., police officers being pulled off bikes. However, it doesn't allow for police officers in this country to be judge, jury, and execution. It doesn't allow anyone to use illegitimate, disproportionate, and excessive violence. And of course, that was why there was concern around a police officer running up to somebody's head, kicking it and trying to stamp on it. That's the allegation. And that's as a result of which we find that a police officer is presently suspended, subject to an investigation. Now, these are all matters that require to be investigated by the Independent Office for Police Misconduct. That's the organisation that will be carrying out the investigation. The GMP are carrying out the investigation. Of course, we've seen leaking left, right and centre of serious material. And I think your audience should be asking the fact is, how does CCTV from a secure unit like Manchester Airport, highly secure, walk its way out, appear in a national newspaper? What is the purpose of it? What was the narrative?
It's a fair point. It's a fair point on the CCTV footage and how that is leaked. I'm sure that'll be subject to investigation. But arguably, the earlier footage that is in the public domain actually helps your clients, of course, because one of them is allegedly kicked in the head by an officer. I wonder as well, you talk about what's happening this week and you talk about the very tense situation in the country, and I wonder whether it was a good idea to hold a press conference on Tuesday, given how inflammatory things are in the middle of a week of race riots and in the middle of a police investigation into your client's allegedly criminal behaviour.
I'm sorry. Don't try to link the two issues. Question about inflammatory.
Well, you did it a minute ago.
I'm sorry. The issue at the end of the day is the fact that what we have seen in this country, we have never seen this level of violence or planned intent of violence from large marches. You have seen people being subjected to pogroms, people in places of worship having to barricade themselves, young people, old people being dragged off the streets, people being...
All of that is true, so why hold the press conference at the same time?
Attacks, attempts to burn people out of hotels and homes, and residents, people who happen to be asylum seekers, the most vulnerable people, and also workers. That is unwarranted. We have never seen that in this country, and that's why police have had to take action, and that's why they've been swift. If you're trying to compare what happened in Manchester...
I'm not trying to compare it. What I'm saying is, and I never have tried to compare it, what I'm saying is, was now the right time to do that, given how tense things are?
Quite honestly, let's put it this way, Peter. They would not have been a necessity for a press conference had it not been the case that somebody, and I wonder who, because who had access to this secure unit of CCTV at Manchester Airport, decided to take that video and go to a newspaper and release it into the public domain, and then proceed to have police sources briefing, the newspapers and putting their side of the story.
If your clients are innocent, what's the problem?
I'm sorry, if the police officers are innocent, what's the problem? Why not wait for...
I'm not saying there is a problem. I would happily have all the CCTV in the public domain so we could all make our mind up, Anwar.
I'm sorry, as I've said to you, Peter, you can take this whichever way you want to. I have asked for due process to be allowed to take place without any more leaks of evidence, allow the IOPC to do its work, allow the GMP to do its work, and stop producing narratives out there, which they did instantly.
Well, you're producing a narrative by doing this interview. You're producing a narrative by doing a press conference the other day.
I'm sorry.
That's what you're doing.
The narrative that was produced was an image of a mother who had her face, she alleges her face was smashed by a taser gun. We hadn't seen that in the public domain. Of course, Manchester Police or whoever it is didn't release that into the public domain.
Okay, I mean, all of this, Aamer, if you'll allow me to get a word in edgeways, Aamer, if you'll allow me to ask you a question, you've talked a lot. I mean, all of what you're doing is painting your clients as victims, and I'm not going to...
That's not the case. I think, Peter, I can't make it any clearer than the fact that if my clients were engaged in alleged criminality, they must face due, robust legal process.
So where are we with that at the moment? Because they've been arrested and bailed, but if they're fessing up and if they're saying, yes, I hit the coppers, well, why have they not been charged?
Legal process.
Yeah.
That's for the investigators to decide.
So have they told the police what they've done? Have they admitted? Have they then, if they're facing due legal process, have they said to the police, yes, I hit police officers, give me the full force of the law? Is that what they've done? Is that what you've advised them to do? Have you asked this question of the police officer? No, you haven't. Well, I haven't been able to interview the police officer. I'm interviewing you, and I'm asking you as their lawyer. Is that what you've said to them?
I'm sorry. That's why it comes down to what Andy Burnham says. Two sides to this. Two contexts.
Well, tell us your side. You haven't told us what you've advised your clients to do.
I think I've already said to you, I expect due legal process.
So have you told them to go to the police and say, charge me?
Investigators will. I'm sorry, I'm not going to conduct their trial on your TV show. They will be conducted. That's the law of this land.
So are they going to plead guilty? Are they going to say this is what it did? You've got it on CCTV?
It's not for Talk TV, Peter. It's not for GB News or whichever platform it is to decide the guilt of individuals. If they wish to plead
guilty... Well, you've decided the guilt of the police officers. You've made on various occasions in this interview, you've said what you allege the police officers did.
Alleged. for the investigators now to investigate. The investigators are carrying out investigations. They will look at the evidence. They will come to a considered decision at the end of that. I've heard the nonsense about two-tier policing. Well, in relation to the rioters, what did you want them to do? Remain on the streets, set fire to houses, attack police officers, carry on doing that? They pled guilty. That's why the swift
and justice was done swiftly, and I'm not condoning for a second anything that any of those rioters did, and I'm glad that they have been found guilty, and I'm glad that the process has happened. But there are people who feel there has been a delay in the process for your clients. Why are they out on police bail at the moment?
See these people that feel there's been delay and they feel that they're victimized. I'm sorry, it's nothing to do with people. That's why we don't have, you know, lynch mobs. We've seen lynch mobs over the last week or so.
But you're saying, Aamer, you're saying that
we don't allow a lynch mob to conduct justice. It's for the system to conduct justice.
Okay, so you're saying you have said on a couple of occasions, and rightly so, that if your clients are guilty, they should throw the book at them. But the point is,
if they've engaged in alleged, let's get it right, engaged in alleged criminality, it is for due, robust legal
But you know whether they've engaged in that criminality or not, and we've seen the video.
We have a process. We have judges.
Yep.
We have juries.
I'm aware of that.
We have defense, and we have prosecution.
So they're going to plead not guilty then?
Style system and talk TV, do we? Where you will decide whether somebody's guilty or not. No, we present the evidence, and sometimes.
Well, what is the evidence? Is there contention that they are not guilty?
Sometimes you will have situations where police officers have attacked individuals, and then what you will see the tail end of the incident where somebody may well have attacked them back, and then the question arises: well, who's responsible? Was it a legitimate detention? Were they actually given their rights? If they were not, then there's problems for the police. Now, that's for the process to decide.
But you're not giving me a straight answer on whether Fahir Ahmad and Mohammed Ahmad actually attacked police officers.
I've told you, subject them to due legal process, not on Talk TV. I'm not going to say what my clients have done or not.
So are they going to plead not guilty?
I've just said to you, and I will say it again, Peter, they should be subjected to robust due legal process, and then it will decide what the position is. At this point in time, you haven't seen the full CCTV. At this point in time, you've seen a pixelated version.
Well, neither of you, with respect, or maybe you have.
Sorry?
Have you seen the full CCTV footage?
I am not going to address here all the complete versions of the...
Well, you're saying I haven't seen it, so can't judge, but you're not telling us whether you've seen the whole thing, so can judge.
You're drawing a conclusion on the basis of whatever reason it is. You're trying to be judge, jury, and executioner.
But you know, and you won't tell us. Well, you know, in your opinion, if you've seen the whole thing, if you won't even tell us whether you've seen the...
my opinion. I have said quite clearly at the press conference, it is a matter for the investigators to be allowed to carry out their investigation.
But you can help them. You can help them.
Without repeated leaks.
But you can help them. If you've seen the footage,
without repeated leaks.
Okay, you've made the point about leaks a number of times. Aamer, let me ask a question, if you would. You have said on numerous occasions that you've advised your clients, you want the due legal process to happen. I totally get that. Yes. But the point is that you have spoken to them, and you won't even tell us whether you've seen the non-pixelated footage. You know whether they've done this or not.
We have a whole series of pieces of evidence. I'm not going to discuss on Talk TV.
Well, surely people will come to their own conclusion that your clients are guilty.
I'm sorry, we're not, because that's not how it works in this country, thankfully. It's not for you to decide whether somebody's guilty or not. The courts will decide. We've often had situations in this country. We had it during the miners' strike where people were condemned and found to be guilty and then subsequently found out actually that wasn't true. There's two processes. Let's just go through the whole process. Once the investigators have carried out their investigation, they will decide. Then ultimately the courts will decide what is right, what is wrong. That's the way it works. That's the reason why I'm involved with this system. That's the way our justice system works.
Is your publicity okay? Is your publicity campaign, the fact you've done this interview, the fact that you've done a press conference, an attempt to intimidate the police and the Crown Prosecution Service into not charging your clients?
Are you saying I attempted to intimidate? Is that what you just said?
I'm saying, is it an attempt? Is it an attempt?
You said I attempted to intimidate the police.
No, I didn't say that. No, I didn't say that. No, I said, is it an attempt?
The word intimidate.
Is it an attempt to intimidate the police and the CPS into not charging your clients?
I'm sorry, that's absolutely nonsense. That's total
okay. Well, say no, and we'll move on.
That's fine. I can say to you that if my clients were engaged in alleged criminality, then they must face due, robust, and legal process. How many times do you require that said?
But you'll be defending them.
Do you require it said?
But you'll
what do you think those words actually mean? What do you think those words mean?
Let me ask you. Let me ask you a final.
Like,
well, I'm asking the questions here, Aamer. I'm asking the questions here. Do you
ask questions? I answer the questions, and I'm asking you now. What do you think that means? I can say many times again and again and again.
Well, you've made the point, and I think we get the point, Aamer. Let me ask you another question.
Going back to it again.
Okay, let me ask you another question. Do you believe the police had any racist motive in terms of what happened at Manchester Airport?
As I said at the press conference, that's not for me to decide, it's for the investigators to decide. Whilst you may well wish to decide, or you may presume that maybe because of the colour of my skin that it will simply come out and say this was racist. Well, actually, I'm
not presuming anything. I'm just asking you a question.
Said, you asked the question, I'm now answering it, and I've said to you, that is a matter for the investigators to investigate. And it's a matter for Greater Manchester Police to say what their motivation was. At the end of the day, what we do know is that a woman, a grandmother, was left on the ground, badly injured, cut from the face, crying, disoriented, and had a 6-year-old son left grandson wandering around asking for his father. No assistance was provided, no duty of care was shown, and it begs the question, why?
Okay.
Why?
Okay, Aamer Anwar, thank you very much indeed for speaking to us this afternoon on Talk Drive. Aamer Anwar is the lawyer for the family in the Manchester Airport police video. We made a little bit of progress in there, but a few questions he wouldn't answer. Let me know your thoughts on this, 0344